So for our first session of BIPOC Chef Demo Series, we have Yusuf. So I'll have Yusuf introduce himself and talk about his background of where he's from and how he found his passion for cooking, and then we'll move on from there.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. We're super happy to have you. We're live at the Minneapolis American Indian Center. I'm really honored to be here. I'd just like to give a shout out to Yazi the chef for inviting me to be part of this important cooking series on Instagram Live. All right. So I'm just going to kind of show you what we're doing here. You want to line us up a little bit?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's good.
All right.
So now we'll have Yusuf. He'll go ahead and jump in and start introducing the dish and talk about his ingredients, and then he'll share with you what he's cooking this evening.
So this evening I'm going to be doing a simple dish of blue corn mush. And the blue corn is Navajo blue corn, and then we have from Dreams of Wild Health this beautiful yellow corn. And we'll be doing yellow corn crusted walleye. Also have some greens here, and that'll go to garnish or finish off our dish. So to get started, I'm going to start with the blue corn, and I got some water boiling here on the stove. I have lemongrass here, and I'm going to infuse my water with a little bit of lemongrass for our blue corn grits. And I'm simply cutting this up and leaving it on the stalk so that it'll be easy to remove when we're ready to do that. But this is going to be the base of our dish tonight. Blue corn is one of my favorite corns, especially for grits. Whether you're making them sweet or savory, it just lends wonderful flavor to your dish. You can see we got our lemongrass, which I'll use it as like a little whisk in a sense to kind of stir and infuse. Oh, and you can smell that already coming through. Turn that flame up here a bit. So the goal here tonight is to prepare some dishes that with ingredients that I found throughout the diaspora and that have been used by black chefs in the creation of a lot of soul food dishes. And to show and talk about the history of where they came from a little bit and where we're going with it.
So Yusuf and I met, I believe 2017, 2018 at Pokagon Intertribal Food Summit in southern Michigan, in Gun Lake, Michigan, to be exact. We met there about 2017, 2018, I believe.
Yeah.
And it was my first tribal event that I've been to, and it was Yusuf's first intertribal event. Being welcomed to a community. Shout out to Dan Cornelius for introducing Yusuf to the indigenous food movement. As a chef, having these type of connections is very important. Having that type of diverse with BIPOC chefs, right, from different parts of the world, and knowing where our roots come from, right? So we'll have Yusuf continue, and I'll jump in every now and then.
Yeah, I actually met Brian, Chef Yazi, briefly at Standing Rock. It was, there was a lot of kitchen camps. We were trying to find each other. We were in communication, and it was the last day, and he was just on his way out. I ran into him. We talked about doing something when we got back to our respective homes, Minnesota and Wisconsin. And then Dan Cornelius put together a tribal food summit at the University of Wisconsin, and we met there and talked about going to Pokagon, and then we did that. But yeah, the first time we got to actually cook together was at Pokagon, and I was just really taken by all the beautiful ingredients people were rediscovering, And you know, in a roundabout way, not so roundabout way, that kind of led me on a path to rediscovery of ingredients from the African diaspora. You know, I saw these beautiful corns and squashes and, you know, sunflowers and all these beautiful ingredients that people were being reintroduced to and rematriating. And I thought, you know, like, there's got to be something like that out there for us and from the African diaspora. And so that just like led me on a path to discovering my roots and making delicious food along the way. So I just want to show you guys. You can see that this liquid has taken on a beautiful golden color with the lemongrass infusion. It smells very, very, very good right now. I'm gonna, without further ado, I'm gonna add some blue corn to this.
And when I can, I'll try and move the camera over as well.
So for the blue corn mush, I'm gonna go ahead, add it to a mixing bowl. I'm gonna add water to this a little bit just to kind of make a slurry. Add a little more water here.
Yusuf, may I ask how you learned that technique?
So, strangely enough, I learned this from Maisie. Maisie White, Rowan's daughter, at that first food summit, and she just talked about when she makes her mush, she makes a slurry. So I learned this from, I think she was 13 years old at the time.
That's cool because with the Navajo food culture, traditionally when we make blue corn mush, we do the same thing. Or no, use cold water to get it slurry and then mix it in.
Right. And that's gonna stop, that's gonna like hydrate the corn slightly. It's also gonna prevent lumps from forming. You see I'm continuing to whisk as I slowly add this until we get to the right consistency, which I think we're good there. I'm gonna add just a little bit more water. And you can see the beautiful color. It's like indigo. Wonderful color and aroma that we're getting. I'm going to take our lemongrass stalks and put those back in there and just use this to kind of stir my mush and also to continue to infuse the flavor of the lemon. Now, you know, part of my diaspora is growing up in a neighborhood, a very diverse neighborhood. We have people from, you know, all corners of the globe. We have a really strong Hmong and Asian community in Madison, and lemongrass is, you know, part of that Asian diaspora vegetable, but it's just a wonderful, indispensable tool. I'm going to turn my heat down on this and set it on the back to just simmer for a bit. There we go.
Yusuf, I want to ask you a question about the work that you do in Madison area. I know the farms that you collaborate on, the farm that you may have helped create. You know, do you want to cover that and talk about some of the work that you're doing, but behind, you know, cooking at the stove, right? Putting your hands back in the soil.
Absolutely. So, you know, in line with food sovereignty and learning more about my roots, I took a genealogy test and rediscovered my ancestors in Africa and the places that we were brought over from. And, you know, one thing that I saw when we went to Africa was that, you know, I was fortunate in 2019 to go on a trip with Devin Hamilton. Michael Twitty was one of our leaders of the trip, through a group called Roots to Glory. You can find Roots to Glory on Instagram. And one of the things that, you know, that stuck out to me immediately was like the beautiful farms, and that the reason that we were stolen was because of our ability to farm and they needed us to come here and grow rice. So when I came to that realization and to see it with my own eyes, I realized that I had to come back and work, in the soil and get some food growing from the diaspora. So I started work with Rooted in Badger Rock, and we started a farm at Troy Farms, and we also started a BIPOC garden at the Capitol. I got seeds from Dan Cornelius and other people from the community, and we were able to grow greens and okra and 3 types of indigenous corn at our state capitol. It really inspired a lot of people. It set some other people off, but that's another story. But it was a successful project, and we'll be doing that again this year. And just continuing to grow and teach in the Madison community and show people the beautiful things that the diaspora has to offer. So, our next dish that we'll be preparing is this beautiful walleye that I got here in town. I'm going to start by adding this yellow corn from Dream to Wild Health to our little Cambro here. And then I have a mixture of lemon peel, onion, garlic, thyme, salt, some white pepper. I'm going to add that and make a little bit of a breading here. Okay. Just going to cut this into some nice fillets that we can bread up, and we're going to fry into some nice little walleye nuggets. You see, I've removed the scales and kept the skin on. That adds a tremendous amount of flavor and nutrition. You see how easy I cut through that walleye. This knife is an incredible knife made by Quentin Middleton from Middleton Made Knives. You can find him on Instagram. He's a knife maker from South Carolina, and this is a knife from our diaspora. He's an African American knifesmith, master knife maker. All right, I'm going to hit our walleye with a little pinch of smoked sea salt. Season it a little bit before I dredge it in the yellow cornmeal. And into the cornmeal it goes. Just going to lightly toss this around. And you really kind of want to work it in there a little bit. Looking good? Yeah. All right, I have sunflower oil here, high heat sunflower oil. I'm going to add it to our pan. Hotter. You really want to, if you're doing any sort of pan frying, pan searing, deep frying, 350 is pretty much the magic number where you're going to get, you're going to cook your fish or whatever you're cooking. It's going to brown up nicely. It's not going to dry out too much on you, and you'll get a nice crispy skin. You can see that that's really starting to sizzle now. And I'm starting our fish out. Our fish, we're starting skin side down. In just a lightly seasoned cornmeal from yellow cornmeal from Dream to Wild Health.
I wish we had smell-o-vision because it smells so good in here. just the cornmeal by itself with the walleye. Then smelling the blue corn mush in the back as well, that sweet roasted Navajo blue corn mush, you can definitely smell that. And we'll cover, we'll have Yusuf talk a little bit about the, the connection and the history of survival and the negative genocide behind indigenous people here in North America, right? And then the African ancestry coming over, right? So talking about that and with Yusuf using cornmeal, right, as in place of grits, if you may, right? And using the Dakota yellow cornmeal from German Wild Health. Shout out to German Wild Health, and then the Navajo blue corn as well. So while Yusuf is working on that, I'll have him jump in and talk about how when he started working with indigenous ingredients. For example, picking travel source cornmeal for grits and for that type of style of cuisine.
So what I think that people are starting to recognize here is that now for this grits, cornbread, fried fish, often attributed to soul food or food of the enslaved peoples. Why do people view grits and cornbread as soul foods? The corn went back with the Portuguese on that first return trip. So by 1493 or 94, they had corn in Africa. But our adoption in the survival process to have food that would give us enough nutrition to work all day long, we needed high energy foods. And I'm feeling that pretty much immediately there's historical accounts of African and natives cooking with one another. And we picked up some tips and some ingredients. So when people talk soul food, they're really talking about the food that connects us, the food that kept us alive, and the food that sustained us through the brutal hardships of forced migration and slavery. And you take working with indigenous ingredients. I really started that around 2017, and like when you start to taste some of these different varieties of corn that are out there, it just totally opens up your world. Like if you had only ever tasted a tomato that came from McDonald's, you might think tomatoes suck, generally. But being able to taste these beautiful, wonderful heirloom indigenous corns really changed the way that I cook. And they're still going back. So yeah, this fish is starting to look really, really, really good. Our blue corn mush is right where it needs to be. I'm going to transfer this. Flip it over one more time. Oh, my oil is nice and hot.
Smells really good.
So, what we got is a lot of history together. You wouldn't have cornbread without corn, so how did that conversation start? And that's what we're trying to retrace and reconnect. But it's not a holiday in my family without grits and cornbread. That's when you know it's special. And greens. You got to have grits, cornbread, and greens. Those are three things that are part of holiday traditions. And in my family, and a lot of family folks from the diaspora. All right, our fish is absolutely perfect.
So Yusuf is also a chef at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And I'll have him cover that, talk about, how he got into the university as a chef, for one of the resident halls. have to cover that. And then he's also, he's been working hard reintroducing that type of indigenous local cuisine into the university as well, or at least at the resident that he works at. So as an ally, right, for him, to do that type of work and to help the next generation of chefs, right, and teaching them, to be diverse and to have that allyship, especially with institutions like universities and colleges and even tribal casinos, right? It's hard to get indigenous ingredients in these in these production lines, right? So and for us here at the cafe, we're at Minneapolis American Indian Center, right? And right now we have his banner up here, just to show his journey back to his ancestral foodways, if you may, right? And for me, being Navajo, focusing on the Southwest food culture, and then focusing on the North American indigenous ingredients as well, right? And it's always have ways to go. I always have something to learn every day as well, So as I step back, we'll have Yusuf, as he's continuing with the demo, I'll have him touch on the topic of the work he's doing at the university.
So yeah, as Chef Yazzie said, I'm a chef at Dejo President's Hall for the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I've been working for UW Housing for 14 years, and before that I worked for the School of Business, so all total about 22 years of service to the university. It's important to me, being from Madison and being a part of my community, to help educate the next level of, even if people aren't in culinary school, just passing on culinary knowledge and serving good meals to the community and trying to educate them where we can is very important. And in order to continue building these relationships, it's important to spread the word of the work that we're doing so that you can get allies that are interested in these foods and interested in reconnecting to their foodways. It's vital. It's absolutely vital. So for our next final portion of this dish, I have another wonderful, this is the world's first folding chef knife made by Quentin Middleton out of Middleton Made Knives. You can find him on Instagram. And it's useful for just about everything. Titanium handle. You can take this camping if you're traveling around and you don't want to carry your best knives around with you. You can throw this in your back pocket.
I'm sure you can shave with it too. So
yeah, it's very sharp. But check it out. Order one. This knife has changed my life. Yeah. I'm gonna chop an onion for you guys quick.
That's pretty cool. I like that. Yeah, actually that's the first time I've seen a folding chef knife. Yeah.
And Quentin did a Kickstarter for this, and he was seeking to raise $100,000, and he ended up doing $138,000. And he delivered right on time. One of the best Kickstarters I've been, privileged to be a part of. And just a really cool project and idea, folding chef knife. Forget about it. So I'm just gonna cut this onion. Just gonna slice it. Nice slice on that. Hot?
Yeah.
Get these going. So yeah, Black and indigenous people have had, a lot of history. A lot of our foodways, a lot of the etymology of modern dishes, and then the adopted foodways where we might not have had okra, but we could get sassafras from the indigenous folks. I'm gonna put a little garlic in there. I'm just gonna smash it, run my knife through it twice. Call it a day. Boom. We got our greens. We're just wilting these onions slightly. And then we're just going to add these greens. To the pot. I got some smoked olive oil here. If y'all can see that. That's going to go in the pot. In the pan, rather. And I'm just going to toss these around for a minute.
Let me know if you guys have any questions. I'll definitely read that out to Yusuf. Any type of questions, let me know where you guys are from. If you're not from in the States or Canada, let us know where you guys are from.
Yeah, it's always wonderful, because of the pandemic, we had to, I wish we had smell-o-vision. Because of the pandemic, we had to take precautions to keep, black and indigenous communities were two of the hardest hit communities by this pandemic. There's a number of reasons and factors that, play into that, so you can't just, pick one or two things and say that this is the cause, but a lot of them are the same. Our lack of health care, lack of health insurance in some of our communities, lack of access and transportation to testing facilities and vaccination, misinformation spread throughout our communities. So our communities face a lot of similar challenges, and it's really reassuring to know that you can connect with people that are going through the same thing that you're going through and learn from them, so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel, so we can just be strong, support each other, and keep our communities fed and healthy. There's a lot of BIPOC stories out there to be told yet, and we're inspiring some people with this chef series that Yazi the chef is hosting. We're hoping to inspire some people to tell their stories and to start, recording the stories in their community. So you can see we got greens and onions with some smoked olive oil and garlic. And we're just going to sear this lightly. I'm going to put a little bit, Chef Yazi has this wonderful vegetable stock. I'm going to finish this with a little bit of the vegetable stock and call it a day. We're not going to overcook these greens. It's just going to be simple.
Just as Yusuf was saying, right, we're all coming from different parts of culinary food cultures, right? Some of us are established, within our food culture, with our history. Some of us are barely returning back to our food culture, right? So with what Yusuf has been saying is he's gaining knowledge about not just the African food culture, but gaining that knowledge and perspective of the land that he's on now, right? And in the Ho-Chunk territory, Menominee, Oneida, or Wisconsin area, right? So talking about that and learning his surroundings, right? And being able to connect with Oneida, with tribal community members like Dan Cornelius, who's been doing amazing work in the food sovereignty movement, right? Connecting with someone like that, with Elena Terry as well from Ho-Chunk, shout out to Elena. Connecting with people like that, and then keeping that movement going, right? And just seeing that for a couple of years now, right? And then I always supported Yusuf being at the university or out being a sous chef to the indigenous chefs that he would collaborate with, right? And it's pretty cool to see that. And I want to bring him on as one of the first, as the first session, because I want him to talk more about, his experience with food, right? His experience with connecting with his food culture, right? Just like I said, we're all from different parts of life, and some of us have a different perspective on food, right? So as he's finishing up, I'll have him jump in and as he's finishing up, talk about the recipe and how he's going to plate, and from there we'll talk about the projects that he's working on now.
Yeah, as Chef Yazi said, connecting and keeping our food culture and traditions alive is more essential than ever. I think during the pandemic, a lot of people, got the opportunity to cook more, but a lot of people also got to see the real world effects of the food shortages, right? The supply chains break down. And, then you would go to the store and you see a lot of spaces empty on your shelves. That's what, in a nutshell, food sovereignty helps to mitigate. So by being able to grow some ingredients and being able to, be connected with the land in that way, you're not as subsistent on other people feeding you and your family, and you're able to take care of yourself. That's something that we had historically. It's something that we need to reclaim in order to move forward as a peoples. So I'm going to plate this dish up simply. We have our blue corn grits. I've got my beautiful seared greens and onions with some garlic and some smoked olive oil. And then we're going to finish that with some of this beautiful Dream of Wild Health corn crusted walleye.